Welcome back to one of the most important subjects in the third year. We're talking about research methods. So that's me, Dr. Mohammed Alwishi from London College of International Studies. Let's start by talking about course outline. Introduction: Why research methods matter in literature, foundations of literary research, research methodologies in literature, common research methods in literary studies, designing a literary research project, concluding and conducting a literature review, analytical tools and techniques, case study, applying research methods to literary text, integrating theory and a method and a method, presenting literary research findings, writing up literary research, challenges and limitations in literary research, emerging trends in literary research methods, practical exercises for students. Now let's move to learning objectives, and they are master the fundamental research methods employed in contemporary literary studies from archival investigation to digital analysis, learn to distinguish between broader methodologies, specific research methods, and practical research skills that support literary inquiry, build your capacity to critically analyze both primary literary texts and secondary scholarly sources with sophistication and rigor. Gain, uh, gain practical experience applying appropriate research methods to answer complex literary questions and design meaningful research projects. Learning outcomes: you will be able to recognize and articulate the purposes, process, and applications of major literary research methods, including archival research, discourse analysis, close reading, and qualitative approaches such as interviews and ethnography. You will develop the ability to formulate clear, focused, and answerable research questions that are appropriate for literary inquiries and aligned with specific methodological approaches. You will master the process of conducting comprehensive literature reviews, including searching scholarly databases, evaluating sources critically, and synthesizing secondary materials effectively to establish context for your research. You will be equipped to design a basic research plan that incorporates suitable methods for literary study, addresses ethical considerations, and demonstrates clear connections between research questions and ethical approaches. Now let's start with the introduction. Introduction: Why research methods matter in literature. Research in literature extends far beyond simple reading, comprehension, or personal responsive. It's systematic, rigorous process of inquiry that explores meaning, context, and cultural impact through multiple lenses and interpretive frameworks. Literary research asks not just what does this text mean, but how does it create meaning? Why was it produced in this particular way? And what effects does it have on readers and culture? Literary research fundamentally differs from scientific methods in important ways. Why scientific research typically seeks singular uh, verifiable truth through controlled experimentation. Literary research embraces multiple perspectives, interpretive approaches, and the productive tension between different readings. There is really one correct interpretation of a literary work, and instead, the literary scholars conduct persuasive argument supported by textual evidence, historical context, and theoretical frameworks. Beyond the surface reading, research methods enable you to move past initial impressions to uncover layers of meaning, historical contexts, and cultural significance that enrich understanding multiple perspectives, unlike science seeking singular truths. Literary research values diverse interpretive approaches and the productive dialogues between different critical viewpoints. Original contributions, developing your research skills empowers you to contribute original insights, participate in scholarly conversations, and engage critically with texts in meaningful ways. Understanding research methods transforms you from a passive reader into an active knowledge creator. These skills enable you to ask better questions, find relevant sources, analyze texts with greater sophistication, and communicate your insight persuasively, whether you pursue graduate study, teaching, publishing, or any career requiring critical thinking and communication skills, the research methods you learn here will serve you throughout your professional life. Now, let's go to the foundations of literary research. Before diving into specific research methods, we must establish a clear understanding of fundamental concepts that structure all literary inquiry. The terminology of search can seem daunting at first, but distinguish between all search methodology and methods is essential for the signing and conducting effective studies. Defining research. Research is systematic investigation designed to discover new knowledge, test hypotheses, or solve problems. In literary studies, research involves asking questions about texts, contexts, authors, readers, and the cultural phenomena, then gathering and analyzing evidence to analyze those questions. Literary research is fundamentally interpretive, building arguments through close analysis, contextualization, and theoretical engagement. Understanding methodology. Methodology refers to the overarching philosophical framework and the theoretical assumptions that guide your research. It encompasses your beliefs about the nature of knowledge, how we can know things and what counts as valid evidence. For example, an interpretivist methodology assumes that meaning is socially constructed and context dependent, shaping how you approach texts and formulate questions. Identifying methods. Methods are the specific techniques and procedures you use to collect and analyze data. These are the practical tools in your research toolkit. Close reading, archival research, discourse analysis, interviews, surveys, or digital text mining. Methods are selected based on your methodology and research questions, creating a coherent research design. The role of theory in literary research. Literary theories fundamentally shape research approaches by providing frameworks for interpretation and analysis. Marxist criticism directs attention to economic contexts, class relations, and ideology. Feminist theory foregrounds gender, power, and representation. Both scholar approaches examine imperialism, identity, and the cultural hybridity. Critical race theory investigates race, racism, and racial justice. Theory isn't separate from melody, it guides what questions you ask, what evidence you seek, and how you interpret findings. Information literacy. Effective research requires information literacy, the ability to identify information needs, locate relevant sources, evaluate celebrity and reliability, and use information ethically and legally. In our age of information abundance, these skills are more critical than ever for distinguishing scholarly sources from popular commentary and avoiding misinformation. Now let's go for ethical research practices. Ethical considerations permeate literary research, proper citation and attribution, prevent plagiarism and knowledge intellectual debts. When working with archival materials, researchers must handle fragile documents respectfully. If conducting interviews or surveys, informed consent and fundamentality are essential. Ethical research upholds integrity and earns trust. Research methodologies in literature methodology forms the psychological foundation of your research, shaping how you understand knowledge, truth, and valid inquiry, while literary studies embrace diverse methodological positions, understanding major paradigms helps you make informed choices about research designs and recognize the assumptions underlying the different approaches. Now let's go for constructionalist approaches. Constructionalist methodologies view meaning and knowledge as socially constructed rather than objectively existing. From this perspective, literary texts do not contain fixed meanings waiting to be discovered. Instead, meanings are created through interactions between texts, readers, and cultural contexts. This approach emphasizes interpretation, contexts, and the role of language in shaping reality. Now let's go for interpretivist paradigm. Interpretivism assumes that understanding human culture and texts require interpretation rather than measurement. Unlike natural phenomena that can be observed objectively, culture artifacts like literature require researchers to engage empathetically with meanings, intentions, and contexts. Interpretivist research value depth, notes, and the multiple perspectives over generalization and prediction. Now let's go move to positivist versus interpretivist paradigms in literary research. Positivist or positivist elements. While less common in literature, some research incorporates positivist elements that emphasize systematic observation, quantification, and objective analysis. Systematic literature reviews use use the structured protocols to identify and evaluate sources. Digital humanities projects may count world frequencies, map networks of characters, or analyze large text corpora quantitatively. These approaches can element interpretive work by revealing patterns not immediately visible to close reading. Systematic reviews with explicit protocols, quantitative textual analysis, corpus linguistics approaches, bibliometric studies of literary influence. Interpretivist approaches. The majority of literary research operates within interpretivist paradigms that prioritize understanding meaning, context, and significance. Close reading, discourse analysis, and uh, theoretical criticism all assume that texts require interpretation, and the research bring their own perspectives and the frameworks to analyze. This doesn't mean anything goes. Interpretive research still requires evidence, logic, and persuasive arguments. Now let's move to close reading and textual analysis, discourse and ideological analysis, reception studies and reader responses. historical and cultural contextualization. Now let's move to how methodologies guide research. Your methodology stance directly influences your choice of methods and shapes your research questions. A constructionalist research might ask, how do different readers construct meanings from this text? While a more positivist approach might ask, what linguists what linguistic features correlate with reader comprehension. Neither is inherently better. The key is alignment between the methods, and the questions. Understanding these paradigms helps you articulate your own research assumptions and engage productively with scholarship grounded in different methodological traditions. Most literary scholars work primarily within interpretivist frameworks while occasionally drawing systematic or quantitative methods when appropriate to specific research questions. Common research methods in literary studies. Literary scholars employ a diverse toolkit of research methods, each suited to different questions and types of inquiry. Mastering these methods enables you to design research that is both rigorous and creative, combining traditional approaches with emerging techniques. So let's explore the most widely used methods in contemporary literary research. Archival research involves examining primary source material such as manuscripts, drafts, letters, diaries, and unpublished documents. This method allows researchers to trace the evolution of literary works, understanding authorial intentions and process, and discover contextual information unavailable to published texts. Archival work requires patience, attention to detail, and often travel to special collections and libraries. Discourse analysis. Discourse analysis examines language use in social contexts, exploring how texts construct meanings, identities, and the power relations. This method investigates not just what is said, but how it's said and what effects it produces. Researchers analyze rhetorical strategies, ideological assumptions, and social work that language reforms, revealing how texts participate in broader cultural conversations and the power structures. Qualitative methods. Qualitative methods include interviews and ethnography, focus groups, and audience reception studies. These approaches gather rich, detailed data about how people engage with literature. Reader response search might interview readers about their experiences, and ethnographic studies might observe book clubs or literary communities. These methods bring voices and perspectives into literary research beyond the text itself. Now let's go for literature-based research. Literature reviews themselves can be research methods. Systematic reviews use explicit protocols to identify, evaluate, and synthesize existing research on a topic. Traditional narrative reviews survey scholarship to establish what is known, identify gaps, and position new research. Now let's go for the meta synthesis combines findings from multiple qualitative studies to generate new interpretive insights. Now let's move to choosing appropriate methods. Method selection depends on your research question, available resources, and the methodological framework. Investigating an author's creative process might require archival research, exploring how a text constructs racial identities might explore discourse analysis, understanding reader responses, necessities, qualitative interviews or surveys Often, research projects combine multiple methods, a mixed methods approach to provide comprehensive answers to complex questions. Now, let's go for practical considerations. Consider practical constraints when choosing methods. Archival research may require travel and institutional permissions. Interviews need time for recruitment, data collection, and transcription. Digital methods require technical skills and computational resources. Always ensure your choosing methods are feasible within your time frame and resources while still adequate addressing your research questions. Now let's go move to designing a literary research project. Transforming curiosity into rigorous research requires careful planning and design. A well-designed project begins with compelling topic, narrows to a focused research question, selects appropriate methods, and considers ethical implication. This systematic approach ensures your research in both meaningful and manageable. From topic to research question, start with a broad area of interest, perhaps a favorite author, literary period or theme throughout preliminary readings and exploration. Narrow this topic to a specific answerable research question. Good research questions are focused addressing a specific issue, clear, unambiguous, and well-defined complexity requiring analysis rather than simple answers and arguable, allowing for interpretive debate. Developing your question, transform general interests into precise questions using question words. How does, why does, what is the relationship between, to what extent. For example, I'm interested in Shakespeare becomes how do gender anxieties shape the representation of masculinity in Hamlet? Let's focus the question suggests specific methods, close reading, render theory, and scope one play particular theme. Now let's go for selecting texts and resources. Determine your example with texts, authors, or critical works. While you analyze, sampling strategies include purposive selection, choosing texts that best illuminate your question, theoretical sampling, selecting cases to develop or test theory, and convenience sampling using readily available materials. Justify your choices. Why these texts and not others? Ethical considerations. Literary research involves ethical responsibilities. Handle archival materials with care, following in institutional protocols. If interviewing participants, obtain informed consent and protect confidentiality. Acknowledge all sources properly to avoid plagiarism. Consider the cultural sensitivity of your work. Are you approaching marginalized voices and experiencing respectfully? Ethical research demonstrates integrity and responsibility. Now let's move to the research timeline. Create a realistic timeline allocating time for literature review and background reading, data collection, reading texts, archival visits, interviews, analysis and interpretation, writing and revision, buffer time for unexpected challenges. Practical tips. We will stop here. Start broad, then narrow progressively through research. Discuss your question with instructors and prepare for feedback. Remain flexible. Research questions often evolve during investigation. Keep detailing notes, documenting your research process. Build checkpoints to achieve progress and adjust plans. A well-designed research project establishes a clear path from question to conclusion while remaining flexible enough to accommodate discoveries and insights that emerge during investigation. The planning phase is crucial time invested here prevents confusion and inefficiency later, ensuring your research is focused, ethical, and achievable. So, thank you so much for watching me teaching you one of the most important subjects in the third year, English literature. We will stop here and continue next time. Until next time, ta for now.